The night was silent, yet in the valley of forgotten things, a faint light flickered. There, resting upon a shelf of dust and shadow, stood a vessel unlike any other. It was a clay pot, old and marked with deep cracks that ran across its surface like rivers carved by time. Its once bright glaze had faded, its beauty hidden beneath scars. The other vessels mocked it. Some were tall and polished, their surfaces gleaming like mirrors. Others were strong and flawless, holding water without spilling a drop. The cracked vessel, however, leaked no matter how many times it was filled. It felt ashamed, unwanted, and broken. Every morning, the potter came to the shelf. His hands, gentle but strong, would lift the cracked vessel and place it on the long road leading to the village. There, he would fill it with water from the river and ask it to journey back with him. And every day, by the time they returned, half the water was gone, spilled through the vessel's broken seams. "Why do you still use me?" the vessel whispered one evening, trembling as the potter placed it back on the shelf. "I am useless. My water slips away. I cannot serve my purpose." The potter smiled but said nothing. His silence felt like both comfort and mystery. That night, the vessel lay awake, staring at the cracks in its body. It envied the perfect pots, wished it could be whole like them, and dreamed of a life where it could carry every drop without losing a single one. But dawn came again, and once more, the potter lifted it, filled it, and walked the same path. And once more, the water leaked. The vessel hated the sound, the drip, drip, drip that marked its failure, felt its worth slipping away with every drop. What the vessel did not yet know was this: the potter had chosen it for a reason. Along the road where the water spilled, small seeds had been planted. And though the vessel thought it was losing, it was, in truth, giving life. But the vessel had not yet seen the flowers that waited to bloom. Listen, something had changed in the dark. Before dawn, when the valley still held its breath, a scent of wet earth rose like a secret. The cracked vessel woke to it, uneasy, as if the night had whispered a message it could not fully hear. The potter arrived with lantern light cupped in his palm and lifted the vessel carefully, as though cradling an injured bird. His touch said, "You are still chosen, even if you do not know why." They walked the familiar path, the one that cut through dust and hush, past thornbush and stone. The vessel dreaded the river, dreaded the filling. The moment hope swelled, only to slip away in a trail of dripping failure. Yet the potter knelt, dipped, and let the cold water climb the vessel's sides until it trembled with weight. Then came the first betrayal, a thread of water leaking from a crescent crack, tapping the ground with a soft, merciless rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. "Please," the vessel whispered, ashamed of the plea. "Choose another. Today, choose another." The potter walked on. The road drank as the vessel wept, and the vessel mistook mercy for indifference. They passed a polished urn that traveled the opposite way, shiny as a promise. It glanced at the vessel and tilted its neck with a chimed laugh, a perfect sound from a perfect mouth. The vessel lowered its lip and watched its own shadow wobble on the ground, a dark shape stitched together by cracks. Halfway home, the morning woke. The sun climbed, birds stitched the air with bright thread, and the vessel noticed something it had missed in its daily despair. Along the edge of the path, where its water always spilled, the soil shone darker than the road. Tiny stems leaned out like shy listeners. Dew clung to unseen leaves. There, a cluster of green pressed up through the dust, soft as forgiveness. The vessel blinked, and the flowers were not yet flowers, only a promise breathing. By the time they reached the village gate, the vessel held less than it started with. Shame burned again. The potter poured what remained into a wide basin for the elders, who blessed the water with wrinkled hands. The vessel wanted to apologize, to name its flaw out loud, as if naming it would shrink it. It wanted to confess it had failed again. But the potter set it gently on the shelf and met its fear with a quiet that did not accuse. Night came. Wind tapped the shutters like a friend who had learned patience. The cracked vessel counted its fractures as others might count stars. Each line was a sentence in a language it did not want to read. Yet sleep rose slowly, and in the edge of dreaming, the vessel remembered the dark soil, the shy stems, the way the sun had painted a promise on the road. The memory glowed like an ember cupped in both hands. At dawn, the potter returned, lantern replaced by morning gold. The ritual repeated, lift, river, wait, leaking. But the vessel watched this time, watched the road drink, watched the seeds listening underground, watched the small green shapes answering their thirst. It felt, for the first time, a second, quieter heartbeat beneath the panic. The sense that its loss could be someone else's blessing. And yet doubt argued, if this is purpose, why does it hurt? The potter did not argue with the doubt. He simply walked the path again, steady as truth, letting the vessel's imperfection write water into the dust. Behind them, the road brightened as if a hidden painter were following with a secret brush. The vessel, torn between shame and wonder, realized that both could live in the same body, and that neither canceled the other out. The day closed with a hush. Crickets stitched a low hymn. The vessel's cracks caught moonlight like thin silver rivers. It did not know it yet, but the flowers were almost ready to open, and the first person they would greet was the one who thought it did not deserve to be seen. At last, the day came when the vessel's sorrow met its first glimpse of truth. The path that once looked barren now blazed with color. The seeds the potter had planted, quiet, forgotten things, had drunk deeply from the vessel's tears of water. They had risen, shy at first, then bold, into blooms that kissed the air with fragrance. Yellow, crimson, and violet petals opened like smiles, stretching toward the sun. The road, once dull and dusty, had become a living river of flowers. The cracked vessel gasped, if a vessel could gasp. The world it thought it had ruined was thriving. The leaks it had cursed became the reason the flowers stood tall. Still, doubt whispered, but you were not full. You failed your true purpose. The potter, seeing the vessel's silent confusion, placed it down among the flowers. His hands, scarred by years of shaping clay, brushed softly against its cracks. Look, he said, his voice low but steady. You believed you were weak because you could not hold everything. But weakness is not always what it seems. The vessel trembled, its heart caught between shame and awe. You mean, this beauty exists because of me? The potter nodded. Every drop you lost gave something life. What you called imperfection, I called purpose. Without your cracks, there would be no flowers, no color along this path, no joy for travelers to find. Do you see now? What you thought was failure was gift. The vessel tried to answer, but emotion clung too tightly. It remembered the laughter of the polished urn, the pitying glances of flawless jars. For so long it had compared itself to them, never imagining that its difference held power. And yet, here, the truth bloomed louder than all doubt. Travelers soon began to notice. They walked the path, weary from journeys, only to be greeted by the unexpected blossoms. Their faces softened. Children ran barefoot between the blooms, their laughter carried like bells. Old men rested in the shade of tall wildflowers, whispering prayers of thanks. Women gathered petals for healing teas and colorful garlands. Each smile, each step of wonder, echoed back to the vessel, and for the first time in its life, it felt not useless but worthy. Still, the lesson was not complete. The potter, wise in silence, knew that discovery alone does not heal years of self-doubt. The vessel would need to learn, again and again, that its cracks were not shame but strength, that the way it gave without keeping was not weakness but abundance. That night, the vessel sat upon its shelf differently than before, not whole in the way it once wished, but whole in a new way through meaning, through the lives it touched. Its cracks no longer felt like scars. They felt like windows, through which light and water passed, feeding a world unseen. And deep inside, though fear still whispered, another voice had begun to sing. Perhaps the true worth of life is not in holding everything for yourself, but in what you let flow through you for others. The vessel had only begun to understand. But the path of self-worth is never straight, and even flowers cannot silence all doubts. One evening, as the potter rested and the world grew quiet, the cracked vessel overheard the polished urn speaking. Its voice was smooth as glass, its words sharp as splinters. "Why do you still carry that broken thing?" The urn mocked. gleaming under the moonlight. It loses more than it holds. It stains the potter's hands and slows his steps. We were made to be strong, flawless, eternal. That one will never be whole. The vessel sank into silence. The flowers it had given life to swayed outside. But in that moment their beauty felt distant, their fragrance muted. Old wounds reopened. The vessel's cracks, once glowing with moonlight, now seemed like open wounds again. When the potter came the next morning, the vessel did not speak. It let itself be filled, but this time it felt heavier than usual, not with water but with shame. As they walked the path, it tried not to notice the blossoms bending toward it like children greeting their mother. It tried not to notice the travelers pausing to smile, to breathe deeply of the scent. It only listened to the urn's cruel voice echoing in its mind. I am broken. I will never be like them. At the halfway mark, where the flowers grew thickest, the potter paused. He set the vessel gently upon a stone and sat beside it. For a long time he said nothing, as though waiting for the vessel to speak. Finally, he whispered, "Why do you hide your song today?" The vessel's voice trembled. "Because the others are right. I'm cracked, leaking, unworthy. No matter what you say, I will never be perfect." The potter smiled, and it was a smile of both sorrow and love. "You see perfection as an absence of cracks. I see perfection as the presence of purpose. Which truth will you choose?" The vessel was silent. It wanted to believe, but the shadow of comparison was heavy. The potter reached down and plucked a single flower growing beside the road. Its petals were curled, not smooth, its color uneven. Yet when he lifted it to his nose, the fragrance was rich and sweet. He held it up to the vessel. "Even this flower is not flawless, but would you call it worthless?" The vessel stared. Its cracks caught the morning sun, and for a moment, they looked less like wounds and more like rivers of gold. Still, the urn's voice lingered. Still, doubt coiled like smoke in its hollow body. Healing was not instant. Understanding was not enough. The vessel realized it had lived too long listening to lies about perfection, too long believing worth was measured in comparison. The potter rose, cradled the vessel once more, and continued down the path. "You will learn," he said softly, "that shadows only look large until you walk into the light." And as they moved forward, the vessel began to notice something new. Each flower it had helped bring forth leaned slightly toward its cracks, as though bowing in gratitude. Each blossom seemed to whisper the same truth in the language of petals. "What leaks from you is what gives us life." The vessel did not answer, not yet. But deep inside, the shadow of shame had begun to crack as well, letting through a thin but steady light. Seasons turned, and the path of flowers became famous beyond the village. Travelers came not just for trade or errands, but to walk the road slowly, to marvel at the blossoms that grew more abundant with every passing day. Children gathered wild bouquets, poets carried notebooks to capture the colors and words, and even weary laborers stopped to breathe in the fragrance, feeling lighter as they went home. The cracked vessel watched all this in wonder, though its heart still wrestled with doubt. Some days it believed the potter's words, that its cracks carried a hidden gift. Other days, it could not silence the polished urn's sneer. Yet, little by little, the balance shifted. For every cruel whisper, the vessel found 100 small voices in the flowers, in the laughter of children, in the grateful eyes of strangers. One year, when spring returned brighter than ever, the village declared a festival in honor of the blossoming road. They hung ribbons from trees, played drums and flutes, and lit lanterns that glowed like captured stars. The road, once dry and barren, now shone with petals of gold, red, and violet, weaving a living carpet beneath the people's feet. The vessel was carried proudly by the potter that day, filled once more with river water. But unlike before, it no longer dreaded the leaking. Each drop that fell was a note in a song that the flowers knew by heart. The vessel noticed how travelers leaned down to touch the petals wet with its water, how some whispered prayers of thanks as though the very path had become sacred. At the height of the festival, the village elder lifted his hands for silence. His voice, deep and steady, carried across the crowd. "These flowers remind us of a truth we often forget. that beauty can rise from what seems broken, that life can bloom from loss. Today, we honor not only the blossoms, but the unseen giver who watered them with every step. The crowd turned, searching for the source. The potter stepped forward, holding the vessel. Its cracks gleamed under the lanterns, no longer shadows but silver rivers shining in the firelight. Murmurs spread. Some had guessed, others were astonished. The elder bowed toward the vessel, and one by one, the people followed, bowing in gratitude. The vessel trembled. It had dreamed of being whole, of being flawless, and here it was lifted high, honored not despite its cracks, but because of them. The laughter of the urn, the years of shame, all seemed to dissolve in that moment like mist under the sun. When the festival ended, children placed garlands of flowers around the vessel. The petals rested gently against its fractured skin, as if sealing the old wounds with softness. And for the first time, the vessel whispered to itself, not in doubt, but in quiet pride, "I am not broken. I am a giver of life." The potter, hearing these words, smiled with eyes bright as dawn. "Now," he said, "you begin to understand." But life does not let lessons settle without testing them. One summer, the skies above the valley darkened with clouds heavy as sorrow. The wind rose, sharp and cold, tearing through the blossoms along the path. Rain poured down, turning the road into mud, and thunder shook the earth like a drum of war. The polished urn, who had always boasted of its flawless strength, laughed no more. In the storm, it slipped from the potter's cart, fell, and shattered into shards that no hands could mend. The vessel watched, stunned. The urn that had mocked its cracks, that had seemed untouchable, now lay silent, scattered pieces returning to dust. The cracked vessel trembled in the potter's hands. Fear surged. If even the strong break, what chance do I have? The potter did not set it aside. Instead, he carried it through the storm, shielding it with his cloak. Though rain still found its way into every seam, the vessel felt its water mixing with the storm's tears, spilling freely onto the ground. "I am useless," it whispered again. "What can one broken vessel do against so much rain?" The potter only walked on, steady, eyes forward. And when the storm finally passed, the road was washed clean, the sky torn open to reveal a light sharper than before. Yet much of the path was ruined. The flowers crushed, their petals scattered like lost hope. The vessel wept to see them fallen. All that beauty is gone. The potter knelt, placing the vessel upon the wet earth. He brushed away ruined petals and pointed to the soil beneath. "Look deeper." There, hidden from sight, the roots remained strong, drinking deeply from the water. Though the storm had torn away the visible beauty, new life waited below, ready to rise again. "Flowers fall," the potter said softly, "but roots endure, and what gave them strength through the storm? Your cracks, your giving, they are not lost, only waiting." The vessel's sorrow eased, though not entirely. It understood now that storms would come, that beauty could be torn away, that even what was honored could be humbled. Yet it also learned this: true worth is not measured by what survives unchanged, but by what rises again after being broken. And when, weeks later, the flowers returned, stronger, brighter, even more abundant than before, the vessel understood something deeper than all its earlier lessons. Its cracks were not only gifts in times of peace, they were lifelines in times of trial. The road had survived the storm. The vessel had survived the storm. And in the survival, a quiet truth grew. Perfection may shatter, but what bends, what leaks, what seems weak, endures. The blossoms along the road returned brighter than ever, but word of them traveled farther than the village this time. Merchants carried the tale to distant towns. A road of living flowers, fed by a cracked vessel's gift. Pilgrims came to see it, poets sang of it, and soon the valley was no longer a forgotten corner but a place of wonder. One morning, the potter lifted the vessel as always, but instead of turning toward the familiar river, he walked the opposite way, toward the mountains. The vessel trembled. "Where are we going? This is not our road." The potter's eyes shone with quiet purpose. "You have given life here. Now it is time for your gift to reach beyond." The path grew steeper, the air thinner. No flowers lined this road, only stones and silence. The vessel's leaks seemed wasted here, drops vanishing into dust that gave nothing back. Doubt whispered again, "Perhaps I am only useful in one place. Perhaps my worth is bound to that single road." Yet the potter pressed on, carrying it higher and higher until the valley below looked like a painted memory. At last, he stopped on a barren hillside, where no green had touched the soil for years. He knelt, set the vessel down, and poured water from its hollow into the cracked earth. Nothing happened. No stems rose. No flowers leaned. Only silence, dry and unyielding. The vessel shook with shame. "See, here I am truly useless." The potter did not answer. He simply refilled the vessel and poured again, day after day, week after week. At times the vessel wanted to beg him to stop, to save his effort. But the potter's patience was stronger than the vessel's doubt. Then, one dawn, the miracle came. Tiny shoots broke through the rock, pale but determined. They reached toward the light with trembling strength, declaring life where none had dared grow. In weeks, the hillside transformed, wild with blossoms that clung to the stone as though defying despair itself. Travelers who passed through the mountains no longer feared the emptiness. They rested in the shade of new flowers, drank from streams that now ran where the potter had poured. The vessel, watching, felt its hollow body echo with awe. If even the barren can bloom, then perhaps nothing in this world is truly wasted. The potter touched its side, his hand warm upon the cracks. "Your gift was never meant for one road alone. Wherever there is thirst, your weakness becomes strength." The vessel understood then that its life was not defined by place, nor by perfection, but by the endless act of giving. And in that truth, the weight of comparison finally began to crumble. For the first time, the vessel did not wish to be flawless. It wished only to keep flowing, wherever the potter chose to walk. Seasons passed, and the vessel's journey grew wider. It had walked paths of flowers, endured storms, and seen barren stone turn into gardens. Yet one doubt still lingered in its clay heart. It had never truly seen itself. One dawn, the potter carried the vessel to the river where all journeys began. The water flowed smooth and silver, reflecting sky and tree like a mirror. He knelt at the edge, dipped the vessel, and filled it once more. But this time, instead of lifting it, he tilted it gently toward the surface. The vessel gasped. In the reflection of the river, it saw its own face for the first time. Not hidden in shadow, not distorted by the shelf, but clear. Its body was cracked, yes, but the cracks gleamed with sunlight. Water spilled from them like threads of liquid gold, weaving patterns in the air before joining the river below. What once looked like failure now looked like beauty in motion. The vessel trembled. "Is this me?" The potter's voice was quiet. "This has always been you, but you never looked with truth in your eyes. You only looked with fear." The vessel wept, not with shame this time, but with release. All those years of envy, all those nights of wishing to be flawless, all those whispers of worthlessness, they melted into the river's current. For the first time, the vessel did not see brokenness. It saw a story written into its skin, a purpose carved by imperfection. "Every scar tells of the flowers," the potter said. "Every crack of the storms endured, every leak of the lives you touched. Without them, you would carry nothing but silence. With them, you carry meaning." Travelers who passed the river stopped to watch. They, too, saw the sunlight spilling from the vessel's wounds and were moved to silence. A child whispered, "It looks like a lantern made of water." And indeed, it did, shining, glowing, beautiful, not in spite of its cracks, but because of them. That evening, as the potter carried it back, the vessel felt lighter than ever before. Not because it held less water, but because it no longer carried the weight of comparison. It had seen its own truth. It had learned to look and not hide. For the first time, it whispered not to the potter, but to itself, "I am enough. As I am, I shine." The potter smiled, and though he spoke no words, his silence was full of pride. The years moved like gentle tides, carrying the vessel and the potter through countless paths. Flowers rose, storms fell, barren stone blossomed, and always the vessel leaked its gift into the world. But now it no longer mourned the water it lost. Instead, it celebrated each drop as a seed of beauty yet to come. One twilight, as the sun painted the sky in gold and crimson, the potter carried the vessel to a high hill above the valley. From there, the vessel could see every path it had walked. The road of blossoms, the hillside of defiant flowers, even the far river where it first saw its reflection. All of it glowed in the fading light, alive because of its cracks. The vessel, filled with quiet awe, asked, "Master, why did you choose me, when so many others were flawless?" The potter rested it gently on the ground and spoke with the voice of truth. "Because perfection is silent, keeps for itself. But you, my cracked one, you could not help but give. What you saw as weakness, I saw as abundance. You were chosen not in spite of your cracks, but because of them." Tears of water slipped softly from the vessel's seams, but this time they were not of sorrow. They were of joy, of release, of becoming. Then, the vessel whispered, "The meaning of life is not to hold everything, but to let what we carry flow outward." The potter nodded. "Life is not measured by how much you keep, but by how much you give. Happiness is not perfection. Happiness is purpose. And self-worth is not the absence of cracks, but the courage to let them shine." The vessel looked once more at the valley. The flowers swayed like a sea of light, each petal a memory of water once thought wasted. It finally understood. Its imperfections were not its curse, but its crown. They were the very reason it had shaped beauty, healed sorrow, and left a trail of life behind. As night fell, the moon rose and caught in the vessel's cracks, turning them silver. To travelers below, it seemed as though the potter carried not a broken jar, but a lantern glowing with rivers of light. And so the vessel's story ended not in shame, but in radiance. It had learned the truth that so many spend lifetimes chasing. That even in brokenness, there is brilliance. Even in imperfection, there is purpose. And even in what leaks away, there is the power to give life. The cracked vessel, once full of doubt, had become a symbol of what it means to truly live. And perhaps, dear listener, its story is also yours.